What's up, my friend?
Man, life is so good. I'm so happy to be here. And we got the best tickets to Earth. Did you know that?
I did know that, but I love the attitude, man. I love the sentiment.
Oh my gosh. Because you think about it, look at all history of all the different times of empires rising and falling and all that. We've got like the best, everybody, all of our souls were raising our hands. Everybody's like, I want to go. I want to go at that time. So I can't wait to dive into this podcast and share some of the stuff I've been finding out and see what you finding out and just go from there.
I'm super curious. Yeah, I'm super curious what you've learned since our last episode. I know I dropped you a note, I think on 4th of July, and I was like, "Hey, happy 4th of July," and yeah, and you were like, "Oh man, I've been learning so much. A lot's been going on." And I was like, "Hey, why don't you come on?" But I actually have no idea what we were going to talk about. I just figured we'd jump on and see what we come up with.
Did you watch that YouTube video I sent you?
I watched the first one you sent me.
Okay. So you asked me one time on one of the podcasts we did before, where did I learn these laws of the universe, laws of nature? And I was
Hmm.
like, man, I don't really know like one specific source to go to find it. So I've been doing that since our podcast, kind of trying to find out. Because I actually got to do some things that I didn't even know I was privy to when I went to the mountains of Colorado and invested hours and hours and days, weeks, months, years, over a decade with wild Mustang horses in the mountains.
Yep.
And I got to do what, people label shape shifting. If you want to figure something out, you got to become that in essence. And so to kind of figure out a horse, a wild Mustang horse, and how they operate, and how to invite them into the human element. So that's kind of like us. In essence, we were once wild and we got domesticated. And it's like, let's just think this through. Like, how did we become where we are in life? And maybe there is such thing as shape shifting, like people can just do it instantly and whatnot. They say we all can do it, but to really understand the wild horse, I wanted to look at it from the wild horse's perspective,
Hmm.
and then start to understand perceptions. So it's like in our day and age, there's so much information, so many aspects of this illusion, we could call it. How do we decipher what's real and what's not real? So it's like, do we have to shapeshift, kind of like look at it through the lens of someone else's point of view? And then we can like actually shapeshift into that point of view and that point of view. And then we gather a whole new perspective of ourselves and how and what we're presenting to others, the world. So these laws of the universe, these laws of nature, I've created a YouTube channel,
Hmm.
and then to teach myself, I make a video on YouTube, and then I actually watch it back and then do more research, and then I make the next one. And so like today I was planning to make the ninth one out of
Hmm.
12, law of relativity. But just going through these laws of nature, it starts to explain a lot of things that I figured out in nature. And boy, does that take you down a rabbit hole.
I I feel like I should have checked out some more of these videos before we started. But for example, what was your topic of your video today that you worked on?
Well, I haven't done it yet. I was going to do it today, but
Okay.
it's law of relativity. So basically, that law is like whatever you're going through in life, you're growing. So, like looking at a challenge as something that's for you rather than, against you,
Hmm.
looking at a challenge that it's there to help you grow and understand through whatever challenge it is. Some people like to give good and bad, labels to things, but it's more, looking at it from a different perspective as far as like, why am I going through this? Is this happening for me, not to me? And then what
It's like
benefit?
what can I learn from this?
Yeah, what can I learn, in this game of life of how to, one, not get hurt, and two, how to benefit. So if I don't know the laws, it's going to be really tough to go and learn how to not get hurt, and then learn how to benefit. So in just playing with wild Mustang horses in the mountains, it's pretty serious business. It's like, well, how do I not get hurt doing this? And then how do I learn to benefit not just myself, but the horse? And
Hmm.
then the people that I involved in the horse human relationship, which were a lot of times I did a camp for children with cancer for 6 years. A lot of times kids coming in, they'd never even been around horses. So I've got this once wild animal, and I'm going to put this child up on their back. Well, all these laws of the universe, I just had to kind of play with them before I even knew how to define them, cause and effect. Or
Didn't
let's
you
just start with the first one.
yeah, yeah. Let's start with the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, law of divine oneness. That law simply states what we think and do affects us. What we think and do affects others. So, whatever I'm thinking and doing, I'm becoming. And then a lot of people know about the law of attraction. So whatever you think and do, you become, you attract. Well,
Hmm.
sometimes people think and do things unconsciously and they attract things they don't want, which is law of relativity today states like, well, you attracted that. You agreed to do that. You're going to go through this, whether you want to or not. You might as well learn something as you do it. Oh, these laws are beautiful, man. They just make such perfect sense to me, especially since I've changed my perspective so many different times with so many different horses based on I want to present something to them, observe their feedback, be willing to make changes and do it again to get a perception of myself. And then how does that horse perceive me? So it's almost like in a micro scale, I can do that, but in the world, I could do it too. So it's like if I leave my house and I go out into the world, how do I perceive myself? And then how do I present myself to someone else and look at myself through their eyes?
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's a different thing, man. When you know these laws, you can actually bend reality. You can bend, you can create situations and circumstances you want. Even when they're unfolding the way you don't want, you can redirect them to the way you want.
So, and can you restate the meaning of the law of divine oneness again, real quick?
Yeah, it's like simple terms. Whatever you think and do affects you. And then whatever you think and do affects others.
And do you feel like through your work with the horses, did this kind of reveal itself to you, like the way you think and do things around the horses, you start to get that feedback of how it's affecting them and how it's affecting both of you, really? Is that how you
Yes.
picked up on this law? Did what came first, the horses or the law for you? Like, what did you learn the law, or did you work the horses and then the law came through to you?
Man, I think I played with the horses and they taught me the law because they live
Mhm.
in the law. They know it. They don't have to be like research on a laptop to find out. They know it. They live in it. So
It's
you're
sort
either
of
going to
like
harm.
for nature, it's sort of like automatic. They're automatically
Yeah.
living that way.
Well,
Humans, we have to almost remember it.
we're the only species born disoriented. Oh man, it's so crazy. Like we have to go through so much bumper rails to figure stuff out. But the animals, like a horse, 15 minutes later, he's up and running. His mother will teach him, but he's got to go.
Hmm.
It's time. You either learn to think and analyze things in life and death to survive, or you don't survive. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think these forces, they're already in them. So in
Yeah.
order to even create, anything, so everything is relationship. I mean, we have a relationship with everything. The water we drink, the grass we walk on, the sun that shines on us, the people we interact with. So we have relationships with everything. That's how we learn. So when I developed a relationship with the first wild horse, I had to start learning these laws without knowing the law, like stating it out. There's 12 universal laws. I did not know this until just in the last 6 months.
You
I'll
feel
even say
pretty
the last.
confident. You feel pretty confident that it's 12 though?
Yeah, just all the research I've looked, there's 12 universal laws of the universe, laws of nature. There's a lot more. I will say that because I've used law of repetition, and just throwing that out there. It's like repeating something enough to create a habit to solidify, to
Hmm.
do that. So law of
Yeah.
repetition I put in my book, and I knew that law because I had to talk about that law whenever I taught people how to train wild horses.
Yeah.
It's like a broken record. We got to keep repeating this, not necessarily for the horse, but for the individual person to
That,
really learn it.
that's also like I don't know if you've heard of like the 10,000 hour rule. So they say like if you want to become a master at something, then you need 10,000 hours in that. So that's just like that repetition of like doing, drilling it in.
Yeah. So I heard something the other day. 18 minutes a day for a year. You're an expert. You're a natural. You'll pick it up. 18 minutes a
Interesting.
day for a year straight. I was like, I was still kind of absorbing that one,
Oh, wait,
but
wait. So you're saying you heard that if you work on something 18 minutes a day every day for a year, then you'll have it. You'll be a master.
yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna give that a shot.
I mean, I know, I just heard that like last week and I was thinking about it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to do 8 to 10 hours a day playing with Mustang horses
Mm.
every day for a decade. It's like, wow,
How many hours is that? How many hours would you say you have working with the horses?
man, I took over 5,000 people trail riding in 9 years. So I'm up daybreak, saddling horses, and I'm after dark putting them away, and running them all day and then training. I was training 10 horses a day when I started training horses. So that was sun up to sundown,
What was the I forget what was the story again? Didn't you kind of come into the horse ownership by a bit of chance?
well, not necessarily. I was born into horses per se,
Ah,
and
that's right.
and then at my parents' divorce when I was 5, so I developed a really comfortable state of being with horses. So I'm kind of glad you asked this because this is when you start going down these rabbit trails, man, of learning like laws of nature, takes you down another one, takes you down another one. So it's like we come to Earth to learn contrast. We come here to learn. Here's what we come here to learn. It's so simple. We come here to learn how to love and learn how to be loved. And it's kind of like, well, where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? That's another rabbit trail. I mean, these could be like divided into 10 different podcasts, brother, but it
Well, and
starts to make,
also, couldn't someone listening say, um, "Oh, it's not about love; it's about something else," you know?
well, if they want to argue, yeah, but I did it. I argued with it. And I just come back to be like, okay, then I'm at a lower level of consciousness when I go that direction. So
Right.
looking at a consciousness scale, have you ever seen one of those?
Is it the spiral or
Yeah, there's one that's a spiral, a cone.
okay, yeah,
Um,
I think I have seen this, but
yeah,
yeah, tell me more about
like,
it.
dude, you can Google consciousness scale, and it makes
Hmm.
perfect sense in tying in with these universal laws. So, like, lowest level consciousness is shame. Like when you're in shame, it's like
Hmm.
I can't remember the number they give it. It's like a 20, we'll just say.
Yeah.
But then you go up to like self mastery, it's like 1,000, maybe even higher. So you see the difference, but let's just go up through a few that I know. So like shame, you want to go up from that, it'd be like guilt. You go up from that, it'd be like fear, anger, fear. Then you cruise on into like the neutral zone of courage and pride and desire. And then you go on above that and you're like into love, peace, tranquility, self-discovery, self-mastery, enlightenment. So it's like,
Selflessness.
yeah, stuff like that. So then you go, okay, what's the point of that consciousness scale? Well, if you're in this low level consciousness, whatever you think and you do, you become. So if you're thinking and doing things in that level of consciousness, you're going to attract that level. But if you pierce that veil and you say, no, I'm going to so the law of energy transmutation, that's another one. This states where, well, when I go into fear, I get angry. And that was me. Well, horses, they don't dig that. Like if you're scared and then you get angry and like you start manhandling them, they're going to rebel naturally. They're supposed to. Survival in the wild, they're supposed to go away from things that mess up their, what is that, sympathetic
Their
nervous
nervous
system.
system. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If you start messing with that, and most people are unconscious that it even exists, but you start messing with that, they're like, no, I got to rebel from this. This is not going to sustain my life a long time, especially in a harmony and balance.
Right.
So when we learn how to have a relationship with a wild horse and we understand consciousness, and there's a scale that we can like, okay, so if I'm in anger, that's pretty low level stuff. That's like survival skills, survival zone, I guess we call it.
Yep.
Uh, we've got to punch through that and get up into the love and peace and tranquility and harmony and balance and the long-term sustainability of this relationship to thrive and grow into something it's life enriching for both. Or you choose not to and you see what happens. Generally they'll buck you off and run away.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, the
They can
law
they
of
can they
gravity
can
comes in then,
sense, and then the law of gravity comes in. So okay, so the first law is basically your thoughts and your feelings are affecting everything around you,
Yeah.
yourself, the horse. So what comes next after that?
Okay, so like that law of divine oneness really kind of states, man, we're all connected, interconnected. What we think and do affects us. What we think and do affects others. So the second one, and I should have probably written these down so I don't get them out of order, but the second one's like law of vibration. So everything vibrates in a frequency or wavelength or emotion. So like when I was sitting on the back of a wild Mustang, and I didn't even understand this law of vibration, but when you breathe, that is a vibrational frequency that's happening. You're transmitting energy out. The horse has a receiver to pick it up. He can hear you breathing. He can feel your muscles tense. He can
Mm,
feel your heart rate. He can hear it 3 to 4 feet away. So your heart's beating. That's a change in vibrational frequency. If your heart's beating fast, muscles are tense, get short, shallow breathing, man, that law right there just states, okay, well, there's a definite change in the vibrational frequency of your body. But man, it goes even deeper down these rabbit holes. Your thoughts have vibrational frequency. So, like that consciousness scale, if you're thinking like dark thoughts, people pick up on it. So it's like heart-based frequencies that are picked up on.
yep.
So
Yep.
what a person's saying is one thing, but what their heart is sending out is another. So like I do a lot of therapeutic horsemanship activities with a lot of different people. I got to work with children with cancer. I've got to work with drug and alcohol dependents. I've got to work with elite special forces people. So, they'll be telling you something, but it's not meshing. My heart would be picking up on like, man, they're saying they're okay, but I feel they're not.
Right.
So then horsemanship like opens this door right into nature to where they can get an understanding of that vibrational frequency. And then they can start corresponding with that. So, like law of correspondence states, as above, so below, as within, so without. So, like whatever they're feeling inside, they're presenting outward. But if a person isn't attuned to pick up on certain things or aware, consciously aware, they're not going to, there won't be a resonance difference, so to speak.
Yep.
So it's like if I'm harmonizing with love and peace, tranquility, I'm my parasympathetic nervous system is like in tune with relax, quiet, calm. And then another person comes in and they're trying to put on a mask. They're like, okay, I don't know this guy, I don't know these horses, I don't know what to expect, but I've been operating in a level of anger and fear, but I'm gonna mask that and I'm gonna go up into courage and I'm gonna go up into a little bit of neutral zone, so to speak. But see,
Hmm.
the horse don't lie, and the horses will call that out so fast, and then it's like it's okay because the person realizes, well, this animal is giving me information. I'm growing through what I'm going through with this animal right here. So these laws actually help define for a person what this game is all about, this game of life. It's like, how do I not get hurt? How do I benefit? Well, I need to learn these laws for one, and I need to put them into practice in my life. And then I need to observe myself within these laws and push them out, present, and then observe feedback from the relationship I have with all things, not just other people. What's the relationship with my car? How do I drive it? Am I jerking the wheel around, smashing the brake? Am I, what's going on with this? So it's like,
Hmm.
what am I drinking? Am I drinking water? Or am I drinking hardcore alcohol? What is my relationship with either one? So it's like brings into a whole new perspective for a whole new perception. So it's easy to change someone's perspective if they are willing to look at different perspectives, but it's a little difficult to change their perception. They have to kind of do that themselves. But horsemanship has allowed me to do both because I get to back away and allow the horse and the human come together. And then they get to embrace either one at what other level they're at. It's a really cool thing to watch. But anyway, I wanted to share this with you and see if you had any experience or any
Well,
touches on this.
you know, you mentioned the vibration and how like, they can sense your heartbeat and if you're tense or if you're relaxed, and they're picking up on the vibration of your body. I heard recently actually that but I say they, I don't know who, scientists somewhere, they did a study um on just what you were talking about, how thoughts have a vibration frequency as well that can be measured.
Yeah.
And one of the highest vibration frequencies that they measured was authenticity.
Yeah.
So when someone is being authentic to themselves and true to themselves, this was like the highest, I guess, the most coherent vibration that they could measure, where it's very even and beautiful and not sporadic and chaotic.
Oh man, I would totally agree with that. Because see, horses, wild Mustang horses,
Hmm.
I'll watch them adapt to so many different people. Like I know this horse. I've exposed this particular horse to probably 200 or 300 different people since I've had the relationship with the horse. So I know the
Hmm.
horse and I've
Hmm.
watched him adapt to people. And until they drop that veil of fakeness, I'll say, well, and I shouldn't say fakeness because they're not necessarily meaning to be fake. They're just trying to be respectful. They're trying to mask their pain, is what it is. And when they can authentically let go, like, okay, I don't want to be in pain no more. I want to learn how to climb this consciousness scale, and I want to learn these laws, and I want to implement them into my life to grow and develop into an aware person, has a
Hmm.
very high awareness, and that's authentic because that's what they want. They really want that. Who doesn't? But when they can tap into themselves, their authentic self, quit hiding, quit trying to be something they're not, which is inauthentic, then they can really grow. Then they can really present something true and honest, their authentic self, and then get true and honest feedback. Because again, whatever you think and do, you become. Whatever you become, you attract. So if you are an authentic person, you're going to attract authenticity, from
Yeah.
others in whatever it is, an animal or a person. But yeah, that vibrational frequency, there's something much deeper than even Justin understands.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You mentioned also once you're in touch with these laws, you can now bring more awareness into your life. And I think that is what helps people move up that cone, that consciousness cone, is being aware. So, I think all people get triggered from time to time or startled, surprised, whatever. But then if you can bring awareness to, okay, this is where I am in the cone right now, feeling the anger, and then you can authentically move past it.
Yes. And see that we'll go through these laws. I've opened my book my own notes, but it's like the next one's law of action. So of
Mhm.
course, whatever you think and do, you become. The law of action is, you do an action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Sort of in horses, sort of a way to explain that is cause and effect. But we'll just stick with the law of action because cause and effect comes a little bit later. So
Yeah.
if I'm going to think about something and process that thought and then bring it into an emotion, maybe I get enthusiastic about that thought. And then I added one more in my own book, attitude. I want my attitude to change. And then I want my action, to be my control. I thought it, I felt it, my attitude is in alignment, and then my action. So that
Yep.
law of action is a real important one because you can think about stuff all day and we could, just talk about whatever, but till we go put it into action, it'll never manifest into a reality.
Exactly. My buddy was actually just saying to me the other day, he got really motivated recently. He got a new job and he's, kind of making things happen in his life. And I said, "Man, I'm so happy for you. Like you're thriving. Like, congratulations. Like how'd you do it? What changed? I'm so proud of you." And he said, I really just got honest with myself and realized I had the realization that we are physically responsible for the things we want in this world.
Yep.
We are physically responsible for the manifestation of those things. And it's possible, like just like you said, through the first two laws, your thoughts and your vibrations and your feelings, those are the first two steps. And then the next step is take action, do something
Yeah.
physically to bring that forth in the world.
Well, love is verb. Like
Mm,
what you do, it takes the same energy too. That's what I've learned going through this, man. It's like I can either choose to be low level consciousness or high level consciousness. It takes same energy. I can't create that energy or destroy that energy. It's exactly the same. I had it explained like this. It's like the nuclear energy. You can power a whole city or you can make a bomb and blow up that city. It's just the same energy, how you want to use it. So it's like,
mhm.
I choose love. I choose love. So how do you do love? How do you get rid of, we'll just call it evil? How do you get rid of it? Well, you add more good. You just, it's the same energy either way, because law of polarity, we're going to go to that one. But
Yeah.
it's like one end of the spectrum of the other. So it's a choice. And then you talk about archetypical minds, that gets deep. You got a conscious mind and a subconscious mind and a catalyst for change. And then you got, what else do you got? You got, kind of self-discovery, transformation, um, the way, the choice. It's like, wow, it gets deep. But to
Yep.
keep it real simple, if you just follow these 12 laws and like define them for yourself, if people would just look at them and become consciously aware of them, and that's the skill everybody needs to develop in this life is an awareness. Horses are very aware. My wild horses that come in here, they're acutely aware of their surroundings. They pay attention. It's life and death for them in nature, but especially when they come into the human element, like we did, and they don't know the game, they're on high alert. And that's where my job comes in, and I help them understand that the human element is something they can grow in. Because whatever they're going through, they're growing through as well. So they're in the
Mhm.
human element, they get to realize, wow, I'm actually ascending in consciousness because now I can understand what love is. I see this person loving me. We're talking love in language, English, but
Mhm.
what it is verb. So what I do, that horse is picking up on. What a person does, other people are picking up on. So these laws are very real, whether people realize them or not. And they're rigged in our favor. That's what I love about them so much. They're like
Yeah.
rigged in our favor.
Yeah, for sure. They're here for us to like once you learn them, you can really like make things happen in your life
Yeah.
how you
And
want
then you
to.
can and you can understand why things happen in your life that maybe you wouldn't have before. Some people get down on themselves in that low level consciousness going through something. But then
Yep.
they don't if they knew these, they could realize, well, I could transmute this energy right now. I have the power to snap my finger and transmute energy. I actually
It's
do
it,
this to myself.
and it's like this is the reframing of like this is happening for me rather than happening to me. What can I
Yes.
learn from this and imagine the growth and how amazing it's going to be once I learn this lesson.
Man, when I wrote my book, I gave myself 1 year to do it. And I
Hmm.
wanted to distill it down into like the meat of what people need to read. So I built a house from zero. My wife and I, we built three houses actually, but from zero to a house. And that's so much transformation going through that. Because there's times where you want to give up. There's times where it's hard. But then you have these laws, which I didn't even know how to define these, but I live them. So it's like, okay, the law of transmuting energy. I would have to find a way to transmute negative energy, like I don't want to build this house today, into I really want to build this house today. Well, I came up with the saying and I wrote it in the book is I'm just going to go cut one board. So I would intentionally go over to just cut one board. Like literally, I'm just going to do one, and I'm might leave. But one led to two, two led to three, and then it just got into flow.
Yep.
And it's like the ability for someone to just snap their finger and transmute energy, negative into positive, is just, man, it gives you like a superpower.
Yeah, and I think for you wrote a book and you gave yourself a year, and I know a lot of people want to write books and they could take the just one board approach. I'm just going
Yeah.
to write one page, or I'm just going to write one sentence. I'm just
I
going to write
actually
one
wrote that.
sentence.
I actually wrote that very thing in the book. So
Yeah.
in writing that book, I would tell myself, I'm just going to write one sentence.
Yeah.
And it would lead to two and three, and then a paragraph, and then a page, and then 10 pages. It was pretty interesting. And that's kind of like law of repetition. You know, you repeat something 18 minutes a day for 5 days, 10 days. You know, it's defined to me this way once. Somebody say, well, that's hard. And I say, no, it's easy. And they say, well, how is it easy? Well, it's something we can do. We just got to work hard at doing it. So it's like I
Mm.
could cut one board. I could learn concrete. I could learn plumbing. I could learn all these things that I had to learn to do it. Because people say, well, what's the hardest thing about building a house? And I'm like, well, keeping the energy to do it every day. That's honest and true,
Keeping
because
that momentum
that's
going.
what it was. Yeah, that's what it was for me.
Hmm.
So once I realized how to transmute energy from not wanting to do it into wanting to do it, it was a game changer, because
That's amazing.
nothing was hard after that.
Was part of it as simple as I'm just going to do one board? And that's
Yeah.
kind of how you began the transmutation process of like, oh, I
Yes.
don't feel like doing this to like, okay, I'm just going to do one board. And now the energy's flowing the other way now.
Yes. And then I learned to do it in other areas. So like I managed this big, beautiful ranch out in Colorado. The ranch was just magnificent. Had six toilets in the house. I'm the ranch manager, so sometimes I couldn't get hired anyone to do it. So I'd have to clean toilets. Like legit, man. I'm like, the gloves go in, and then I would not want to do that. I'd be like, oh, man, I don't want to clean toilets. How do you transmute that energy? Well, it was like, I'm going to be the best toilet cleaner on this planet. No one's ever going to clean a toilet as good as me ever. And that gave me motivation to be like, I'm going to do this thing is going to shine like no one's ever seen it shine. And then I had five more. I'm like, I'm going to go do the next one. And then before I knew it, I'm done.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then that thinking and association, I was like, I'm going through toilet cleaning and I don't want to. How am I growing? What am I growing with doing this? Well, when it was something I did want to do, I did it even better. Oh, these are just so powerful,
Yeah.
man.
And who was I just had a guest on the other week and they said a saying that I think is very common, but it's how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that might be
you can get
true.
excited if you can get excited for the toilets, just imagine something that you love doing.
Yeah. Yeah, because after that I would get to go take people on a trail ride on the backs of horses in beautiful Colorado Rockies.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe the yin and yang, so to speak. But it's like, yeah, one minute you're going to be cleaning toilets, the next minute you're going to be riding a beautiful Mustang in the wilds of Colorado, looking at the scenery that most people only get to look at in a painting.
Are you in a house that you built right now?
No, I remodeled this one, a
Gotcha.
lot of it. You know,
Gotcha.
remodeled bathrooms, re-roofed it. You know, so this was a fixer-upper. Yeah.
Gotcha. Got you. Whatever, just out of curiosity, your houses that you built, did you sell them or
Yep. Yep.
gotcha. Gotcha.
Sold them.
Sell them, build another, sell them, build another, and then eventually ended up in this one that was already kind of standing on its own.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of an interesting story because I moved here and bought vacant land to build another one. But the first, if you read my book, you know, the first time I did it, we lived in a horse trailer for like 2 or 3, 4 months maybe.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that to my wife and child again. So I was like, I'm going to buy a fixer upper house, fix it up, and then as I build this other one. But we fell in love with the fixer upper place. So I just ended up selling the land. So it worked
Nice.
out.
You're out there in North Carolina, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Pinehurst, North Carolina.
Yeah, nice. And are you
Yeah.
still having a lot of people out there for retreats and working with horses?
Yeah. I've got an interesting deal going. I formed an alliance with a organization that does drug and alcohol rehab for people.
Hmm, good.
And they wanted to introduce people to horsemanship, lifestyle. So I'm technically a life coach. That's kind of what it's trickled down to today.
Hmm.
Life coach.
Yep.
Uh, Started out horse trainer, went into clinician, and did all these wonderful things in the horse world, which I still love doing. But I really love people, so now I get to be a life coach, and
Nice.
that's just kind of the term that has defined what I do.
Hmm.
And I just happened to do it through horsemanship. And bringing these people in, it's just really interesting to see transformation in others.
Yep.
And by myself, just constantly having this desire to learn and grow and understand life better, navigate life better. I kind of want to be prepared for the next person that walks through the gate. So it's like what motivates me to learn these laws of nature is for the next person that comes through. Because
Yeah.
I always want to try to be at a level wherever they're most conducive to learn, wherever they are at to learn most efficient and effectively. So if I don't know these laws, it would be pretty tough to navigate the next person, because I've had so many walks of life to come through in all the years I've been playing with horses and doing the camp for children cancer and then taking the people for trail rides. And it's like, okay, I better figure this out because I just want to be there for the next person that needs information to solve a problem in their life that's inhibiting them from living their best life.
Yep.
And that's what motivates me to this day.
So we've got the law of oneness, we've got the law of vibration, we've got the law of action. What would you say is the next one, either in
Well,
order or the next one that you learned?
the next one's law of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. So it's like the ordinances that cover the heavens and the earth. The law of vibration works in outer space. These planets, they can measure their vibrational frequency. That's amazing to me. It's like, huh.
Yeah.
So it's almost like as I go down this pathway, again, there's all these rabbit holes. It's like, why are we on Earth? Did our soul vibrate at a frequency that drew us to Earth? Because the Earth is vibrating at a frequency, and we're supposed to come here and learn something. Are we star travelers? Are we universe travelers? Or are we figuring out, piecing together, the final answer? So it's like interesting to me whenever you think of things in frequency and vibration.
Hmm.
And then like our soul, it's a from what I understand, our soul is infinite. Our body, human body, is finite. So what better way to experience a finite, way of life than to inhabit the human?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, here we go. Let's like really dive deep and figure this out. So, if you hear all these different spiritualities and you hear all these different religions and all these things, and they're very interesting in one regard. They're trying to figure out where we came from, why we're here, and where we're going.
Yeah.
And it's
They
like,
all seem to
okay,
say we are going somewhere. They
yeah,
all they all do seem to say that when you die or when your body dies, there's something else that's going to happen. Or I think
yeah.
that's the controversy is none of us are quite sure what. I guess we can't really know, but or maybe we can, but I don't know.
Well, I think when you pierce the veil of this consciousness awareness, you start to attract information that's probably there, but you're not worthy. We're not worthy to receive it unless we have the eyes and ears, see and hear it. So it kind
Hmm.
of makes sense to me. If everything's in frequency, like if we're following these laws, there's a vibrational frequency. You change your consciousness to a higher frequency, you're going to attract something from that frequency, more information. But if you aren't, the law of attraction, we haven't got to that one yet, but if you're not vibrating at that frequency to attract it, you will probably never get it. So if Earth is vibrating at a frequency and your soul needed to come here, and let's just say it needed to come here to learn contrast, because that seems to be pretty apparent that there's yin and yang, there's black and white, and
Day
you
and
can't really
night.
have one without the other. You know, there's negative, positive, hot,
Yeah.
cold,
Man,
bad,
woman.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these things are making sense to me more and more because playing with wild horses, there's no cut and dry, man. I mean, it's like there's contrast in all of them. Like they're all different. And you can see when you present in this manner, this one responds this way. And then you present in that same manner, this one responds this way. So it's like, wow, even in the horses, they have contrast. You know, like what I thought would work on this one doesn't work on that. But what I
So
thought wouldn't work on this one works on it. It's
with, with
interesting.
with the law of correspondence, can you share a way that this law emerged to you like more concretely through working with horses? Like an example of I was working with the horse and then this law became much more obvious to me.
Well, yeah, I can because it has a lot to do with ego.
Mm,
So, like, I heard it this way: earth guided only self. You know, it's a lower level self. It's the external world directs. You know, you're always looking outward, never really going inward and ascending in that sacred self, so to speak. So, like with horses, if you are ego, big ego, like it's my way or the highway, you know, and they're strong, man. They're 1,000 pound muscle. They're not gonna just sell out. So it's like, okay, I had to tap into me. Like, what am I presenting to create this effect, you know, cause and effect? What action am I doing to do this? Well, I had to realize very quickly, I don't have, you know, so 7 horses I could do this with. The other three, I don't have answers. Where am I going to get them? You know, am I going to go read 50 self-help books? No, I don't have time. I got this horse in my pen right now, and I've exhausted everything that I humanly know through my 5 senses. Nothing's working. So then I have to like take a deep breath, and I've got to ascend from that ego self up into a higher consciousness.
hmm
And I would sing to horses. I would just start singing, literally change my whole presentation. And then the answers would flow in. And then this horse would come over. And then I would be like, okay, how'd that happen? How'd that work? What was that? So then you just kind of reflective think at the end of the session and go, okay, I tapped into something there. And that was like not from me. I got the answers, but I didn't have them. So what is it? And then you
Yeah.
research it and find out, well, there's a higher level of consciousness, field of consciousness. You can align yourself, reach up and grab information, pull it down as you need it. You're worthy to receive it at that point. It's ready to give it to you. Like the universe is really wants you to succeed. It does. It
Yeah.
wants us all to succeed.
I've had a lot of guests on that talk about meditation. For example, I think you know Nate Reeve.
Yeah.
He's a coach, and he's been on, and him as well as many others say that meditation is very important because it's in that inner silence and inner stillness when you're in your inner reflecting
Yep.
that you can gain new insights into like something you're working on.
Yeah. So like in a horse pen, round pen, we call it, with a wild horse, there's no other spotlight I've been under that's more piercing, that's more defining. I mean, I've stood in front of 4,000 people and give, you know, horsemanship, do stuff in front of them, but in front of a wild horse that's staring at you, breathing, and you're trying to create this relationship, you know, willingness in the horse to come here and let me touch you. You, I've never been under a more piercing microscope of like, okay, I've got to look inward here and see what he's seeing. So I've got to go be the horse and I've got to look through it from their perspective and I got to present something. And then, you know, it's like the golden rule, you know, love your neighbor as yourself. So I've got to like think I'm a horse. What would I want this human, which is me, do to me if I was a horse? So trade places with the horse and treat them like you'd want to be treated. Coin that, you know, for myself, but I teach that in horsemanship and it pays in dividends. So
Mm-hmm.
it actually helps you ascend further faster.
Mm.
So then you get information more clearer and deliberate at the time you need it, not at my time, the time you need it.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man,
yeah.
time.
I've
Time
also
will,
heard I've heard other, quotes from all around different guests, and sometimes I forget who said what, but also if something is meant for you in the universe, you will have it when you're meant to have it.
that's
You don't have
right.
to actually worry that something's going to pass you by, and it's actually all kind of divinely timed to happen as it's meant to.
Yeah, man, I'm listening to some higher minded individuals than even myself. I consider myself, and they're basically saying like when you align with the universe, you will not even be found wanting and desiring because the second that you start to think that and you follow these laws, you'll make the necessary changes to get what you need when you need it in the rhythm or flow state. So it's like your skill and your experience here on earth, and then a challenge comes, you'll have everything you need to, I'll say, be victorious in the challenge.
Yep.
And
And
that
this is
is so,
some people call this faith, or trust in
yeah,
the universe,
yeah.
trust that the universe is it's all unfolding so you can learn and grow and you're going to have what you need.
Well, faith is fear in reverse. So if you have fear, so I train wild Mustang horses and I deal a lot in fear with people because I never feared horses. Never, I don't even know what it feels like. So I have to like go to the person and ask them, what does it feel like? Tell me. I want to know.
You probably have
And
a
then
lot
they're
of
like,
you probably have a lot of clients who probably are a little scared of it. It's a gigantic 1,000 pound of muscle animal.
yeah. And that fear is debilitating until they realize, oh, that's artificial in my mind. Yes, it is, because the horse does not fear you. So there's no reason to fear the horse. What they fear is going too fast too soon and not having the answers. So like I'm actually flying with a pilot right now.
Hmm.
And he said this the other day, and this kid is awesome. He's way ahead of his time. He's 19 years old. He's flying around the country. Took me with him.
Hmm.
He's like, you got to fly the plane so the plane doesn't fly you. I was like, I like that. So you got to get ahead of it, just a little ahead of the plane and fly it, so it doesn't, so you don't fall short and it flies you. So fear of flying, people could have that. I wouldn't know what that would be necessarily, but I love flying, so I have no
Do you
fear.
fly? Are you a pilot?
Well, I'm getting lessons. Yeah,
Oh,
right
you're getting
now.
lessons.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Dude, my first plane I ever flew, you're not even going to believe, it was a Honda jet.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Yeah, my buddy, he's like, "You're flying." And I thought he was joking. He's like, "No, you're doing it." Like, okay. And here we go. He's like, "Do this, do this, do this." I did all this. And he's like, "Release the brakes." And I did. And here we go. And he's like, "Lift the aircraft
Is
up."
that like a little tiny airplane? I don't know anything like what a Honda Jet even looks like. Is it like a super tiny little airplane?
No, it's like, I would say not a tiny little airplane, but it's not like gigantic, huge either. It seats like 7 people.
Got it.
And it's
Okay.
got two big jet engines on it that can fly like really, really fast. I don't know. You can look it up. It's crazy.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
And that was my first plane that I ever flew.
How long
And
ago
it was
was
just
that?
a couple months ago.
Nice.
So I was like hooked doing it. And then I've been flying with my other buddy. But it just, the correspondence in all things, it can really relate. These laws of the universe can really relate.
Yeah.
Um, when we talk about law of correspondence, um, whatever you have been thinking and doing, you at this very moment is the total sum of what you've been thinking and doing. It's like we're right where we are based on what we've been thinking and doing because we became that and we vibrated there and we attracted things to us. So it's like if I don't like where I'm at, all I got to do is just change my thought, change my emotion, my attitude, and ultimately my action to create or manifest into existence what I do want. And wow, what a journey that is because you get like I talk about it in the book as a sixth sense or
Hmm.
as a superpower. because whenever you don't have information and you need it, you actually can access it just by getting in alignment. And it
Mm,
comes, and then you think, where did it come from? Well, then that gets you hooked because then you want to, curiosity will just get you going into the realms of discovery. And then you can finally understand what enlightenment is because it's like so comforting at that point. It's like,
mm,
man, I don't ever fear not knowing the answer ever again.
beautiful.
It is a powerful thing.
I feel like I feel like we should cover like one or two more laws and then
Okay.
maybe and then like wrap it up there and then we'll do a follow up and cover the rest.
Okay.
Because
All right.
that way we don't that way we can kind of like, spread it out.
So these laws are so simple
Hmm.
yet so deep because there's so many different perspectives. So for and that's what I love about that law of divine oneness. It kind of makes sense that there was one thought and then it fractaled into many thoughts and then it fractaled into, many people, we'll just say. So there's all these perspectives. And if you have like one infinite intelligence, people say God, we'll just say that. And for the simple enjoyment of getting more perspectives, create the tree for a perspective, create the human, create, and then it's like, okay, well, if we're all one, then we're actually part of that infinite intelligence. So then we actually can actually tap into information that's readily available because we created it. But in the human finite body, we are limited in certain things for purposes that will enhance our experience. So
Hmm.
whatever we believe is going to dictate how this experience goes.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, why not be open enough to learn the laws of nature, apply them to our life, and create? If we're part of the creation and we are creators, let's create a life worth living that would, I mean, you just, words don't even describe how great it could be. Because if you think it could be great, it can be better. If you think it can be bad, it can be worse. So that law of polarity. So like what, let's just do one more.
Yeah, yeah,
What do you say?
for
All
sure.
right. So cause and effect's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, we could touch on that one, but I like them all so much. Law of compensation. That's an interesting one.
Okay.
A lot of people they don't really understand that law of compensation. I go take a wild Mustang horse out of the wild, and people are like, "How long does it take to get a saddle on their back?" I'm like, about 3 days, and they're like, "What?" It blows their mind. But I'm in alignment with so many other things. The law of correspondence is still there, but it only takes 3 days. Whereas if you're not in alignment, it could take 6 months. But let's get real specific on this law of correspondence so people can have realistic expectation of other things. So like you take a apple seed, you go plant it in the earth. There's a formula. You got to have dirt, water, sunlight, time. So that law of correspondence is like it takes the time it takes. So we can research how long does it take an apple seed to grow and bear fruit that we can eat. I would guess, I haven't looked it up myself, so I'll probably embarrass myself, but 5 to 7 years, we'll say, you're going to get fruit. But if you go out there in like 3 weeks, 6 months and dig that thing up and like shake it, give me some fruit, it's not going to do it. Law of correspondence dictates it takes the time it takes for that to happen. So it's a real interesting one, that law of correspondence. Whatever
Hmm.
you think and do, you become. Well, if you only think and do it one day, you're probably not going to become, because it takes time. So
Yep.
if you 18 minutes a day for a year, you might have a realistic expectation of being able to fly an airplane. Probably have to invest more time each session. But if you think about something for 18 straight minutes a day for a year, probably going to have a pretty good understanding of that, whatever it is.
Hmm.
So that law of correspondence says, takes time takes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And law of compensation,
Yeah.
that
Oh,
is kind of
I'm sorry, law of compensation
oh yeah,
says that.
okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So that was law of compensation.
Yeah. Yeah. I kept saying correspondence. Yeah, law of compensation.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting one because it can kind of give us an understanding of like, okay, a realistic expectation of growing into what I want to become. We'll just say airplane pilot. I've got to understand that law of compensation. You know, what I put in is what I'm going to get out. So if
Hmm.
I put into, so I'm also playing golf. Okay. So I go play golf and on a 9-hole course, I'll have like 8 good swings. But when I first started out, I have like one.
Right.
The law of compensation dictates, well, takes the time it takes. You'll get better. Law of action.
Law of repetition.
Yeah, law of vibration. You know, what are my thoughts based on this? What are the
Hmm.
outcomes? Am I sinking into a low level of consciousness of frustration and anger, or am I ascending into like peace and tranquility? Because I'm never going to get so serious about that game that I'll probably be any good. So it's pretty easy to go, I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
just here to have a good time.
There you go. I'm having a great time, and I'm each day I get a little bit better.
Yeah. And so that law of energy transmutation comes in. And it's pretty cool because if you start to get frustrated with something, you can literally snap your finger that fast and transmute that same energy into something we'll call positive or a higher consciousness. Take a deep breath, relax, and go into it and do so much better.
Yeah.
So much better.
I
And
feel
that's the
like
secret.
I feel like the laws all do seem to build and overlap with each other as well.
Yes. Yeah, they do. They do because they're all relative to providing us with what it is we're after. You know, it's a formula. It's like making a cake. You can't have a cake if you miss some of the ingredients, right? You can't have a sweet cake if you forgot to put sugar in it. It won't rise. You know, all these things if you don't have the right heat. You know, it'll be black burn if the law of compensation didn't understood that it takes the time it takes, but hurry up and get it out of there, it'll burn. Those all are like our life. It's a formula. There's ingredients to it. But in learning these laws of nature, the ingredients start to get defined for us because the universe wants us to succeed. It's in its best interest that we do. This earth just changed vibrational frequency into a higher frequency because the overall collective of people have ascended into a higher frequency. Well, that's
I,
powerful when you look at that.
so I've heard this too. You know, we were talking about the cone of the of consciousness, or sometimes it's a spiral. And so I've heard it within the spiral of consciousness spiraling upwards. It's kind of like when it once you hit a certain percentage of people in the population, sorry.
Yeah.
Once you hit the right percentage of people that have gone to the next level, and then it starts to pull everyone else up together.
Yeah.
So if you can get to like 10-20% that have already raised their awareness enough, then it starts to pull everyone up to the next level.
Well, it's like law of attraction. So if you start vibrating at a frequency of love, that's my favorite one because people understand love or they want to.
Yeah.
It's if you start thinking and doing things in love, you will attract people that resonate with that. You know, it's like if I love someone, I'm loving myself. So if I tell someone, I love you, they're already ascended higher just by that. I mean, I'll tell people about horses when I go out to eat, and they already ascend into, you know, smiling and happy just by saying the word horses. So horses and love and kindness and adventure and all of the things that come with it, they just start ascending by default because they're attracted to it. And then it feels good. And then the benefits start to nurture and grow that ascension. And then it's just a way of life that gets changed for them. And then they start looking through a different perspective at other things. They're like, well, I don't resonate with that anymore like I used to, whatever it may be. You know, that's detracting them from ascending. So they maybe get new friends. Maybe they don't do the things that were causing them to decline into a lower state of consciousness. You know, maybe they go into new friends that they're attracted to because they're vibrating at that frequency. So yeah, so like attracts like. We'll just say it that way.
Yep. Yep. I would say too, and I've noticed that maybe you agree that, going into nature and like you spent thousands of hours in quiet, listening to nature, connecting with animals and the elements. And I feel like that puts people into a state where you're more open to receive the
Yeah.
information that we were talking about, and you can and increase your awareness of the world around you, and also of the world within you as well.
Well, that parasympathetic nervous system gets triggered, and the attraction to those things is a lot easier to get and then absorb because you're not on defense. You're not in flight mode. You're more into the everything's great mode. And then you're willing to receive the information that's trying to come in. And horses really help people do that because they set the stage. They already put them, in that mindset. As I facilitate that, it's the horses that actually do it. And then the person does it for themselves. And then there's nothing more powerful in healing when a person can figure out how to trigger themselves into healing. So, one other thing that I looked into, because I always try to listen to everyone's perspective. And like there's these, people that read the Bible. So I've been reading it a lot more than I ever have.
Hmm.
And in that revelation, they talk about four horsemen. You've heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I listened to a guy talk about read the Bible as a psychology manual, like look at it from a psychological perspective. So the four horsemen, I heard it this way, and I've been kind of trying to wrap my mind around it. So I'm just going to introduce it to you and the readers, and then kind of like it's something new for me. But like the four horsemen, they're described in colors of horses. So you got the pale horse, which would probably be a green horse, sickly. That's death, and death follows that horse. That psychological mindset of the pale horse would be dying of oneself or death. Um, Destruction, I guess we could call it. The red horse would be like um, emotion. So when people get triggered of something that triggers them emotionally, but they don't have the intellect to it, they're riding the red horse. They're like, I'm so mad at this and that, but you ask them, okay, why? Tell me why, and they don't know. They're just like, oh, just emotionally, I'm triggered. And it's okay, all right, so you're on that red horse. And then there's the black horse, and the black horse is like emotion only. So you're riding the black horse, you're everything, you're not depending on intellect, it's more emotional, and you can't figure out why. I mean it's more intellect, not emotional. Like you've done emotional way up. So intellect, you're dominating with intellect, divorced from emotion. And it's like, I'm going to figure this out with my brain, my five senses, no spiritual knowledge or growth. I'm just going to, and you go into depression because you can't figure it out. And that's what I was trying to tell you earlier. Like when I'm in with a horse under that microscope and I've exhausted intellect, like brain, five senses, nope, don't have any answers, not breaking through any ground with this horse. They're totally not having it. Then I've got to go, okay, well, maybe I need to tap into the emotion, the red horse, and balance out. And then it's like, maybe I need to die of my ego self and I need to go ascend into like a sacred self, and not be doing this horse training for the love of money, but more for the growth and expectation that I'm going to enrich my life on learning this right here. What's real? This is real. So then the white horse is represented as like higher level of consciousness, like a spiritual information flowing into you. Your truth is being discovered. You're really defining your whole being, your whole character, and you know that you rode those other three horses in your life, and you're probably going to have to ride them again. And it's like, okay, but I want to ride this white horse all the time because that's the consciousness. the overarching consciousness of understanding those other three horses. And then I'm going to come into contact with people that are riding that red horse. You know, they're triggered by politics and they don't even know why, you know, so it's like, okay, I am going to help them. And that Christ consciousness, they call it, or that higher overarching consciousness comes in to where you can present to them in their time of need what they need to discover. And then that could be, you know, you're totally understood. You totally understand yourself, and you're totally understood when you help them with what they need at the moment the most. How
Dude,
is that?
that your that analogy of the four horsemen was amazing. Man,
Mm.
you nailed it. I think what we'll do is we'll leave the episode there and we'll sign off and we'll have to do another one to go into more laws and more of that. But that was awesome. I love that, man. The red horse is the emotional side, the black horse is the intellect, the pale green is the ego death, and then the white horse is sort of the one that you want to ride on, that flowing consciousness and that higher selfless loving state of being, very present. And also I appreciate that you acknowledged that the other horses likely will be back, but if
Yeah,
we have our awareness around which one that we prefer to ride, then
yeah,
you can do that.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, man. And going down these laws of the universe, and then like you almost can't like discard the Bible. You got to like have it, and then you can't discard like this person's perspective because he's one with me. I mean, we are one, you know,
Hmm.
trying to figure this out. So I think once people ascend into that love consciousness, that all perspectives will be, you know, embraced, because I think when we hold judgment, we are, you know, who is really the judge but ourselves. We're holding ourselves in whatever we're judging. We're judging ourselves. So it's kind of like if I could just get rid of judgment of others, myself and others, and open my mind, my heart, you know, connect mind and body to love, I think that people will be attracted more to that. The perspectives will help us grow collectively into experiencing this life much more engaged. You know, because if you only have limited little perspectives, there's just not, it's not, you're not going to get the full engagement experience. And
I,
man, I just want to help people try to go that direction because it's such a wonderful way to live.
I love what you're sharing with the world, and I the thing we should leave it on is what you said is embracing all perspectives. I think
Yes.
that's where it's at. And let's sign off, and we'll do another one in maybe a month or two.
Okay, brother. Thanks, Jeff.
Cool, man. Thanks, everyone. Bye.